Hey, Dr. Lamb.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Quick question for you. When we do the observations, we do it on just our group members, or can we do it on anybody?
You can do it on anybody.
Okay.
Talking about the peer reviews?
Yes, sir.
Just whoever's handy.
Okay. I mean, I know I just grabbed one last night to do it, but
yeah, that's what I mean. That's the thing to do. I mean, if there
right.
isn't one available and you get time to do it, just grab somebody else's.
Okay. Okay.
Don't sit and wait on people. Go.
And you said for task 2, that's just copying everything from our AppTel?
Task 1, 2, and 3 of the AppTel. Take the labels from the AppTel off of it.
Okay.
Got it?
Yes, sir.
And make sure you include your professional growth plan at the end of task 3.
Okay.
Because that's the piece that I want.
Okay.
I don't want to see any tasks I don't want to see any directions from the AppTel. I just want the content.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No, sir.
All righty. Things going good for you. How about you? Have y'all met to work on your case study?
Yes, sir. We did that last night. We're going to meet again, I think, Wednesday night.
All right.
And again, Sunday to finalize everything.
Yeah. Yeah, it takes 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
All right. So who's leading this time?
What you mean in our group?
Yeah.
I think it's either Jennifer or Laura.
Okay. You should know who the leader is. Now, y'all understand that y'all got to rotate. Everybody's got to take a turn.
Oh, you talking about on the case study?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we know that. That's why we're going to meet again Sunday to practice.
Yeah, I mean, when y'all, whoever's leader of this one is not going to be the leader on case 2. You'll have a new leader for case 2 and a new one for case 3 and a new one for case 4.
Okay.
So that everybody gets a chance to lead one of the case studies.
Okay.
Now all of you will be there to participate and present, but I'm talking about who sends out who assigns what needs to get done and who calls the meetings and who does the links in Zoom. All those things have to be done. You can't just show up and click on a button and say, all right, what am I supposed to do? That's not leadership.
I got you.
Have the opportunity to lead one week.
Okay.
I'm gonna go over that again tonight.
Yeah, we was debating. I mean, should that lady be fired or should she be reprimanded?
That's a good debate. I mean, that's really the crux of the case. What are you going to do with her? She took a shot at this kid. I mean, just completely out of the blue. So many illegal, unethical. The worst thing you can do to a kid in the business. What are you going to do now?
Yeah, I mean, our thing was if she has tenure.
Got nothing to do with tenure. She broke the law.
Yeah.
Tenure doesn't protect you if you break the law. If you're negligent.
Yeah, we knew. Yeah, we were just saying though. I mean, maybe she, consider giving her.
Right. She did say that's what she got the plans from was.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, some people say, we want to work with her or whatever, and then some people say, if she does this, I mean, what would surprise you about her behavior, knowing this about her?
Yeah, I don't think anything would surprise me because that's a bold statement to go after that kid and fail him for the whole
year.
Yeah.
Fail a kid for the whole year over one homework assignment? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's bad.
I mean, if you take, and you do something that bold, I mean, I don't know what else you do.
And then she's gonna jeopardize the baseball team sponsorship.
Yeah, I mean, she's just burning the whole building down. She's making sure she gets everybody.
Yeah. She had the kid go. I mean, the kid came in with no representation.
Exactly.
But she went in with representation.
I mean, I mean, even if this was an allowable thing, you didn't follow due process, but you can't put a kid out for a year over a homework assignment.
No, no.
I mean,
That's just
that's just crazy beyond any stretch of belief that
that
a
seems
kid
like
turns in his brother's homework assignment and you put him out for a year.
yeah. That seemed like it might be some underlying personal
Well, of
issue.
course there is. I said, full disclosure, Bobby's probably a turd. He's probably been a pain in her behind all year long. But does that change the fact that you still have to give students due process and that you can't do zero tolerance expulsions just because they're turds? No,
Yeah, she violated all his rights.
that's exactly right. She did so many things wrong. She violated state law on grading, on how much stuff can count. She's violated federal zero tolerance policy from the Office of Civil Rights. She's violated his due process under the 14th Amendment. Great day. I mean, what would you have if you wouldn't fire this one, what would they have to do? Other than, as I've said before, physically or sexually abuse a child.
Yeah. I mean,
Other than that, what would they have to do? This is the worst thing that you could do to a child, short of physically or sexually abusing them. And if you didn't want to dismiss a teacher for this, what would it take?
Yeah.
Would it only be sexual or physical abuse?
Yeah.
I mean, is that the only thing that would be the only place you draw the line? And my question is, would you draw the line there?
Yeah. I mean, we were just talking about, just based on, fire her, but or do you reprimand her? But I guess if she did break all the rules. It's evident that she violated all his rights.
The thing that I would have to ask for somebody this bold is, you think it'd bother her? What could you do to reprimand her?
Yeah, we were just throwing some things out there, like maybe 10-day suspension with no pay, and some training, and put on an action plan for some training. But we were just throwing things out there.
Yeah, well, actually, it's easier to dismiss a teacher than it is to suspend one without pay.
Oh, okay. It's just like teachers don't have any rights. The ones that do right, she did wrong on this, hands down. So you can't.
But you're right. Teachers no longer. There was never tenure. There was career status. We've never had tenure in North or South Carolina because that's a different thing. Both are right to work states. There is no such thing. Yeah. There was a continuing status. You got to understand that there never was really tenure, but you don't have that anymore in right to work states. And so now that door swings both ways. Sometimes good teachers get caught up in that, but the notion here is you can use that to your advantage if you are if this was a didn't know, was doing their best, an accidental kind of thing. That's when you would, that's when you would try to do better and try to work with somebody.
Yeah.
But I can't make you not be a bad person.
Yeah.
That's the thing here is that there's a lot of times when these people are alone with children, about 95% of the time or 90% of the time, teachers are alone with kids. I just don't think I'd want this person around kids without somebody watching them all the time. And you can't do that in our business.
Yeah.
That's that piece. Well, welcome everybody. Good evening. This is Mels 603. This is our 5th meeting. Dr. Sain is in transit from Raleigh. He had to go to Raleigh today unexpectedly. He may not be able to join us tonight. And if not, I'll try to fill in for whatever piece of that is. Willie and I were just talking about your case study, and that's where I wanted to start tonight. Make sure I'm recording here. Please remember that one of you should already be working on your case study, and one of your group team members, as always, should be the leader this week, and then you should rotate for each of the 4 case studies. Somebody else should be leader. When I say the leader, that's the person who assigns what each of you are going to do, sends out the link for the Zoom meeting, and runs the meeting when y'all get together. Y'all just need to rotate that among each other. And now when you present next week, I expect everybody to present, not just the team leader. Everybody should have a part, but everybody should have clearly defined things that they're supposed to do to bring together in this group presentation. The whole notion, as I told you on the very first night, is we're going to a next level here of collaboration. I mean, it's easy to get together and talk about something like a peer review, but can you collaborate virtually to produce a product? That's the notion here. Now, I didn't overburden you with a lot of rules or directions to start with. I want you to kind of figure this out, but as you know, a week out, I want to remind you that whoever the leader was this time, you should have had one. You should have known to got a leader. I shouldn't have told you that part. If you didn't have one, I'm telling you now. And then you'll rotate that leader each time. That leader is the person responsible to get you together, send out the Zoom link, and make sure that everybody has an equal part in the assignments and doing their presentation. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to know how to form a PLC. I think you learned that in your first evidence 2 semesters ago. We asked you to do that. How many of you knew that that was what I was asking you to do here? I hope you all did. I won't make you tell on yourself, but I hope you all understood that that was your assignment, was to form a PLC and work on this case, do a data dive on this case. Same as, that's how we work in schools. That's what we do. We form PLCs and we go out and do our work. That's the notion here. So hopefully you're all going, everything is going well. Please, everybody try to be here next week and do your part for your group and your presentation. Now, please remember, when you get through, you've got 2 drop boxes. And let me show you those. I'm going to remind you of this again. So I'll share my screen and we'll go to our shell. Come on, do it. All right, so case study 1 material and drop boxes. So if we click on that button, case study 1, here's where you put your group project. Now, please don't be the person who says, do I have to upload it? Somebody else in my group did. Well, if you want points for it, you got to upload it. Remember, we don't do group points in Blackboard. Everybody should have a copy of the PowerPoint presentation you're going to do next week. All of you will upload it right here to get your grade. And I may not give everybody in the group the same grade. Now, part of that's going to be based on this as well. Case study 1, personal reflection. You notice that this is a Dropbox, this is not a discussion board. That means it comes straight to me and I'm the only one that reads it. I want a half page on your experience, what you've learned, what you've taken away, how your group worked, how your group didn't work, who in your group didn't do their part. That's what I want to hear right here in case study 1, personal reflection, because you've got to learn to evaluate things, folks. That's what they pay you to do, is to evaluate the work that folks do in your building. Again, case studies are a way to get practical experience. So if Johnny didn't do his part, then you need to tell me Johnny didn't show up to any of our meetings. He just showed up tonight and read part of it. We worked well together. Our group is dysfunctional. We didn't work together. Now, don't tell me that your group is dysfunctional so that maybe he'll change us. Not going to happen. You would say our group is dysfunctional. This is what we're going to need to do to fix it. This is what we're going to need to do to fix it. If you tell me your group's dysfunctional, you need to tell me what your plan is to make it not be dysfunctional. Or you might want to ask me for help on how not to make it dysfunctional. But we're not going to change team members. I mean, you can't do that. You get who you get. Can't go dividing up every day. But the same bunch shows up at your building every day. Kids and teachers. You got to work with who you got. This is a learning experience. This is a learning experience. Anybody have any questions on our case studies while I've got it open here? Please make sure that you hit the ethical piece of this as well. not just the legal piece, but always look at these case study from the ethical piece. And if you don't know what that is, you can open this. Some plan, please open up here. I've been having trouble getting documents to open. So at the end of all the laws that you've got to follow, here are your 4 paradigms of ethics: justice, care, critique, and profession. And I've given you little bullets here as to what that means. But also look at these cases through the lens of ethical behavior, not just legal behavior, but ethical behavior. And so, how many of you follow college football? Anybody? All right. And so, South Carolina, I'm full disclosure, I played at NC State. I'm an NC State and Carolina graduate, not that Carolina, Tar Heel, Carolina. I don't have a lot of feelings either way about South Carolina. But the big controversy today was over South Carolina's football coach. He was screaming at, they had a ceremony, and they had their female athletes come out between quarters at the football game onto the field and wave and be recognized as a part of the celebration of the 50th year of Title IX. Now, the reason why this is relevant to us, we've already talked about Elementary and Secondary Act of 1972. And so what is the ESA of 72? Well, that's Titles 1 through 9, right? Everybody understands that. What is Title 9? That's equity for females in all areas of our society. Most specifically in colleges and high schools, it's equity to be on a ball team. You should know that, Title IX. And so South Carolina, in their attempt to celebrate the 50 years of Title IX, had the female athletes come out onto the field during the quarters of the game Saturday. And they were a little bit slow getting off the field. Now there's no penalty or any of that. It's between quarters anyway. They came out, they all waved and smiled at the fans, and they were exiting the field, and they weren't moving fast enough for the coach of South Carolina, because Georgia was beating them like a redheaded stepchild, like a rented mule. And so he was upset over that. And he screamed at him to get off the field. Well, that's been a hoorah, and people have made excuse. The athletic director said, blame me. I didn't, we didn't get organized enough. This is not about how fast they got on or off the field. Did he do anything illegal? No, he didn't do anything illegal. What about his ethics, though? Did he fail on about all 4 of those ethical concerns? Absolutely. Ouch. Not a professional thing to do. Doesn't show any care. It's not. The whole idea of Title IX is what? Justice, right? So he failed on justice, care, profession, critique. He failed on all 4. Now, I'm not saying that anybody ought to fire him or that he ought to be that they ought to call a law on him. He did not break the law. But I have to wonder about somebody's ethical. If somebody his behavior is that way, I'm not sure I want them being the person in charge of anything that I'm ultimately responsible for. I'm not asking that they fire him. I've never met the man. I don't know him. That's not the point.
If they fire him, is that for losing that game?
Well, that's what I mean. See, that's the problem. Is he could be an axe murderer if he wins.
Yeah.
And they won't fire him. I would be more upset over his unethical behavior, because what can I trust him when he's out of my sight if I know what kind of person he is now? Ethically, can I trust him out of my sight? Willie and I were talking to open up tonight as y'all were coming on. This teacher, and the reason why I bring that up, I'm trying to make a comparison here. That teacher that did what she did to Bobby in this first case study, can I trust her ethical behavior? She's broken the law in several areas, federal law, state law, local board policy. She's broken them all. But more than that, can I trust her ethically when she's out of my sight? I don't think she can work for me, because it's her ethics that I'm worried about now, which guides her behavior. The winning and losing chain, you know, the fellow at South Carolina, don't think he's going to win any more ball games than any of the rest of them do, because he's got the same bunch. And you can put them in different uniforms, but they're still the same bunch. And so I don't think he's going to win a whole lot more ball games than the last one that was there. That's not the piece that bothers me. What bothers me is the ethical piece. I mean, he failed in all four areas. I got to wonder about him now. When there might be something that's a little bit shady, I don't know. Somebody says, I think he did something he ought not do. I've got to wonder now. That's something that's hard. And is that fair? Again, I told you, fair, fair is an early adolescent concept, when you're in middle school. Fair for an adult's place you go in the fall of the year and get a corn dog ride the Ferris wheel. There is no fair. If you do something like that and people question your integrity, your ethical behavior, that's not easy to get away from, folks. It's not easy to get away from. And so that's the notion in this case study is, I don't know anything about that man, but I do know now with that kind of behavior, if I was employing him, can I trust him when I ain't watching him? Same thing for you. It's the same thing for teachers. There's got to be a trust factor. There's got to be an ethical concern. You've got to understand that you can't, it's not just legal things or illegal things that you can't do. You got to make sure that your ethical concern is in place. And so I want you to gauge all of these case studies with that ethical piece as well. It's in your directions there, that you should look at the ethical piece of this. Now, there's no doubt the teacher broke the law in at least three areas that we can name. But what about the ethical piece? Do you want somebody like that working with children? If she do that, what wouldn't she do? You got to wonder. If you'd scream at women on the football field when they're being brought out to celebrate women being able to be on the field, what an irony. Well, that's just a perfect irony. If you'd scream at them to get off the field, I don't know about you. I just don't know about you. I'm not talking about his coaching ability or any of that. I just don't know about you. That's beyond bad judgment. That's beyond bad optics. I would worry about something. That's what I'm talking about. This teacher, I just don't believe I could continue on with this teacher. This is just a bridge too far for me. It would be. Now you may decide that we just need to do some sort of a reprimand and do some kind of a growth plan. And if that's what you think, that's fine with me. But I'm just telling you that we judge ourselves by our intentions. We judge others by their actions. You got to understand that. And this one would be hard to overcome. And a lot of it's going to lap up on you as the person who is this person's supervisor. It doesn't matter that you didn't hire her. If you inherited her, she's yours now. And you're responsible for her. I've worked with a lot of administrators over the years who said, it's not my problem. I didn't hire her. Yes, it is your problem. When you signed on to become principal of that school, you inherited her. That's the same as hiring her. You're responsible for her behavior. You need to understand that. Let's talk about negligence, and we'll kind of put that one to bed. Jonathan is Jonathan still with us? Jonathan had a good question today. I like Jonathan's question that he posed today. He asked about, when your district has not followed through on the things that they need to do, when is it their liability and when is it yours? And the answer is it's both always. There was a time when they would try to decide prior to 1992, and you can write that date down, 1992, one of the things that happened when there was a case that went to court, part of what was trying to determine is who's at fault here. Is it the central office? Is it the principal? Is it the teacher? You know, if it went through all those, they don't do that anymore. You all three can be sued now, and they can find you all negligent. That's what happened in 1992. School administrators are now can now be held fiscally responsible if something bad happens in terms of negligence, which is, of course, we know nonfeasant, didn't do anything when you were supposed to. Who was that one? I won't say the name out loud because it might be inappropriate, but one of our colleagues said, they're not using metal detectors at our schools. Yeah, that's that's nonfeasance. You had a duty to use those metal detectors. They didn't buy them just so you'd have them. You're supposed to use them. And then, of course, you got misfeasance. You did the wrong thing. You didn't know it was the wrong thing, but it turned out to be the wrong thing. And, of course, you got malfeasance, which you knew it was wrong. So in the first case study, which of those is the case of the teacher in the first case study? She didn't do anything and was supposed to. She did the wrong thing but didn't know it was wrong. Or did she do the wrong thing knowing it was the wrong thing? For me, this is pretty clear. This is malpractice. This is malfeasance based on malpractice based on she knew what she was doing wrong. How do we know that? We know that during the work days, you have to go over the grading. It's in the faculty handbook. There's no excuse for a veteran teacher not to not know that you can't count one homework assignment more than half the yearly grade. When the most you can count the final exam from the state is 20 to 30%. I mean, how do you not know that? Of course you do. She intentionally took a run at Bobby. Is she liable? Absolutely. Will she lose in court? Every day. Every day. Now, question is do you lose with her? And the answer for me would be no. Just because you sacrificed your house, I'm not giving up mine. I remember when my mother said, if Keith jumped off the roof of the barn, would you jump off with him? And the answer is no. If he wants to jump off, that's on him. I ain't jumping with him. Love you, mean it, but I ain't jumping with you. And so that's the kind of thing we're talking about. And Jonathan's question that he posed today was a great question, by the way. Where does it, where does the blame lie? Well, unfortunately, it lies with all of it. It unfortunately lies with all of you. One last thing on the nonfeasance. Sometimes folks have a little trouble with that. And they'll say, well, I assigned people to do, bus duty, car rider duty, lunch duty. The law is very clear. Your responsibility is not to assign people those duties. Your responsibility is to make sure they're serving those duties and doing that supervision. Let me say that again. That we have a little trouble with that. Your responsibility is to make sure those kids get supervised, not to make a schedule. That's part of it. But you simply making the schedule does not end your responsibility. You got to go and make sure that people are carrying out that schedule that you made. And if you didn't do that, then you're going to be liable for negligence if you did not go and check and enforce people to be on those duty stations that you assigned them to. They will just coming up with the schedule itself is not enough. They'll get you for nonfeasance for not going and checking to make sure that there were 6 people in the lunchroom with 200 kids. That's the thing. You can delegate the responsibility, but the activity, but not the responsibility. You got to go and check and make sure it gets done. All right. So Nate, has raised his hand. Nate, what's got going on?
Well, this year I just so happened to be have been crowned the duty coordinator at the Chamber Academy, and I've realized that the adults are just as sneaky and conniving as the teenagers.
More
that
so.
I teach.
More so.
And I've been preaching equity since I started doing the coordinating position here. And it's like I'm a manager at a restaurant. If somebody misses a duty, I go and I cover it. Because I have to make sure somebody's there.
Yes.
and it's like when I said, hey, you got to be here on this time. Well, so and so is late, so now I have to go and check in and make sure so and so is arriving on time. It's like it's. I'm
the
like, this
never
is just
ending.
as bad as the children.
It's the never ending story, isn't it? Thank you for that, Nate.
I
Really,
just wanted
truly,
to
thank
share
you.
that. I just wanted to
Thank
share
you for that.
Oh, Lord.
All of you, I encourage you to share that. These are learning and illustrative for all of us. You're right. I mean, people, when I say I'd let this teacher go, people are like, oh, you're mean and you're hard. And this, I'm telling you, teachers can be worse than the kids in terms of their behaviors. Not all of them. Now, full disclosure, I was one. I've been married to one for nearly 40 years. I have nothing against teachers, but I'm just telling you, some of them, I mean, they're not the little angels that we would like to think that they are. Some of them are sneakier than the kids. And so you can't depend on them. I mean, one of the things that I used to do is and I know this is probably, probably bad, but if I was having trouble with somebody showing up somewhere for something, I would assign them to wherever I was to be on that duty with me. So that I didn't have to go hunting them that way. And so that's what I would do. I told you I had a football coach, and they'd scheduled him first period class because he was always late and wouldn't show up for his first period class sometime. So I scheduled him on bus duty with me, car duty with me in the morning to make sure he was there, in time for car duty. Then he's there for first period. I mean, but he had to check in with me every morning because I'm standing out front. And so those are the kinds of things that you have to do. But yeah, it's incredible sometimes, and I've often thought, to finish Nate's point, and thank you again for that, Nate. I've often thought it'd be easier to do it than just some of the tricks and the stunts you try to pull to get out of it. It'd just be quicker to go do it. Great day. But there's just some folks who that's just their thing. And some of them are good teachers, by the way. They just resent having to do those kinds of things, and they'll pull anything in the world. As I used to tell my folks when I was a junior high principal, nobody has to die over this. Don't call your aunt in dead again. Nobody has to die over this. You're not doing your duty. This has gotten to the point of craziness now. All right, so let's talk about task 3. You should be approaching task 3 of the OMA. Remember, task 2 is simply a straight copy. Task 1, 2, and 3 with the professional growth plan from your APTEL that you did last semester. You should be approaching task 3 now. Please remember, you're just going to you don't have to do the whole school. If you're like a department chair, if you just want to do the history department, or if you just want to do CTE, elementary, you probably got to do it all. But what I'm saying is middle school is a kind of a maybe to do the whole school. Elementary is pretty easy to do the whole school. High school is pretty much impossible. But what we want to see, what we're looking for is that you understand all the different rules and procedures for scheduling. So get started on making, revising a schedule for your school for whatever piece of it that you're going to be doing. Make sure you do that. Now, don't just do 3rd grade in elementary school, because that's nothing. If you're doing elementary, you need to do the whole thing. Middle, pretty much, you might do a grade level in the specials in the middle. But at least the department in high school. If you can do the whole thing, that'd be great. If you have questions, get in touch with me. All right, so we've talked about, I think we're caught up everywhere we need to be, and we're actually right on our time tonight. So let's talk about disciplinary data. Let me share my screen and get started. As I showed you last week, the manual, I want to start this week with the code of conduct. So let's talk about legally the way this works. If you'll remember from last week, the state puts out a manual. And let me get to it here. Right here. The state puts out a manual, and it has all the rules in it on data collection, what offenses are, how you've got to document them, who you have to report it to, Office of Civil Rights, police, the state. It has all. See, it has all of these laws in here. It has all of the. It has all the policies from the State Board of Education. It has general stat. It has it all in one. Here's your federal Office of Civil Rights right here. As I said, in 2014, responsibility for Office of Civil Rights reporting previously done by LEAs back in my time. So that means everything's got to go in Power School now. And so here are all of those things. Because of that, you got, again, these illegal zero tolerance expulsions. You're not allowed to do that. But if you do, you have to report that you have broken the law. Here are the federal definitions. Everything that has to be reported now. It's anything that comes across the test. We report actions, not outcomes. And so you can't say, I didn't suspend that kid, so I don't have to report it. No, that's not the way it works. The state doesn't mandate any punishment for any action. That's all in your code of conduct. But it says what has to be reported, what is a crime, what is the act of violence, what is an infraction. It has a list, has all the laws, everything that you've got to follow. But it has quite a comprehensive list of things that it says kids shouldn't do in school buildings. Not if we're sending you money. And it has, you have to report where it happened, have to report what the victim was, but here they are. See, here's all the things that the state says kids aren't supposed to do in your building. We're paying these teachers to work here. These kids can't do these things. So the ones with the PD prefix, that means they're going to count against your persistently dangerous calculation. Again, that goes back to 1991 and No Child Left Behind that said kids don't have to go to persistently dangerous schools. And they've defined the things that would make schools persistently dangerous. Assault involving serious injury, assault involving a weapon, assault on school personnel with serious injury. So all these PD, robbery with a weapon, rape, sexual offense, sexual assault, indecent liberties, kidnapping and death, all those things count against you, one for every 200 kids. And then here are the ones that have an RO, you got to call the police immediately. And that generally means don't be trying to investigate those either. Call the law. And then you have all the other things that you can see here that are just unacceptable behaviors. But the state sets these in the recording categories, and then they put them in order here. Again, consequence type. Now, you have to put the consequence in, as you can see, I mean, as little as a conference. And so I've had people say, well, I didn't know that I didn't have to report if I didn't suspend them. Well, you ought to. You have to put the consequence type. And if it was just suspension, everything would say consequence suspension. But even if you conference a kid, it has to go in Power School because we're pulling everything out of it. All these laws that we have to report to the state board, we have to report to the federal government, everybody that wants data and everybody that has weighed in for whatever political purpose, we collect all this data for them. And then we have to go by all these statutes, all these laws. It all goes in one place. So if a kid gets a referral, I don't care what it is, it's got to go in there. There is no major, there is no minor. You can't use a third-party software to try to keep, where you're saying, well, we just put the major things in Power School. We put the minor things over. State says, no, you do not do that. You do not use third-party software to prevent the reporting of incidents that occur in your school. You get caught doing that, you won't get caught but one time. But what did Dr. Sane tell you last week? They had one got caught doing that. They weren't just not reporting everything. They were just putting it in a different place so that, that's minor. We won't report that. No. And then going in later and taking them out. No. No. And so I could tell you 1,000 stories of underreporting or trying to hide. I had a principal who didn't want to report a death on his campus. He said the bell had already rung. I can't make that up. He had a kid that went out to the parking lot at dismissal at 2:15, and before the buses got off the lot, the kid got in his vehicle and killed himself. And the principal didn't want to report it because he said the bell had already rung. I can't make that up. I'm not that smart. I mean, every excuse in the world people will give to keep from doing this. But if you get caught, there's not much of a rehabilitation. You get caught, just like Dr. Same was talking last week. State says you have to go home. You do not fudge their data. That's what they're paying you for. If you get caught fudging their data or OCR data, you have to go home. You're done in this business. So you got to remember that. So you better read this thing. You better know what it is. It gives you detailed explanations of the definitions of crime and violence in the back of the book here. But you better know all this stuff. Now, the good thing is it gives you scenarios for like when multiple things happen, a kid gets in a fight and has a weapon on him, and it gives you some of those kinds of things. And it tells you how to do this. And it gives you some scenarios, and it talks about bullying and reporting assault, and here's some of those examples that we're talking about. It gives you some of that. Now, the state is the one that sets the overall parameters. It is the legal duty and responsibility of your school system to develop a code of conduct. And we'll talk about that. Nate, what question you have?
What's the timeline between when you have to put it into Power School?
24/48.
24/48.
24 if it's an act of crime and violence, 48 for all others.
Okay, thank you.
For just UB. That's a great question. That's a operational, that's a clinical question out in the field. That's exactly that's you got. If you've reported it to law enforcement, it better be in there in 24 hours. And if it's not, it better be in there in 48 hours. Because you got parents coming to appeal, and you got people who are looking into this stuff. And it's never good when a parent comes to appeal whatever you said you're going to do to this kid and you haven't put it in yet. That doesn't go well. That makes parents madder than fire. When you haven't put stuff in, and somebody calls from the central office and says, I looked in Power School, I didn't see this. I got a call from some irate person and I didn't see anything. Why is it not in there? So the state says that's the parameters that the state has said. Not only you got to put it in, you got 24 or 48. Jennifer, you got a question, I know.
So we use Educator's Handbook to document all of our incidences. And we've had situations where we put things in as teachers and they are changed by administration. It's not necessarily like majors, but it's still changed, and teachers get upset. And when it's changed in there, I want to know, should it just be like an amendment to what the teacher said, like after an investigation, or do they have the right to go in there and change everything that the teacher wrote? Does that make sense?
So where are you that uses Educator's Handbook?
Haywood County Schools.
All right, so that's a third-party software. That's what I'm talking about. They can change anything in that, because that is not the official record. What they're doing, I'm guessing, is changing it, and then they're putting the official record in Power School. The state discourages the use of third-party software to do that because it edits things and gets your numbers down. The state actually says that that you're not to do that, but folks do it. Some people use Swiss. Some use Educator's Handbook. Some of them use that PBIS deal. You're not. The state discourages that. Now, be clear: the state will not allow you to dump that into Power School. It's not like you can just download it and put it in.
Right.
They don't allow that. They do not allow that. And so, but what's going on is basically a editing of what's happening in your building. But again, that's a third-party software. The state says you should not use it. Doesn't say you can't use it. It says you should not. And it does say you should not use it in order to edit your data.
To me, that seems unethical, because as the
It is
teacher,
unethical.
I never know where, if I wrote something up and it happened this way and I need something to
Yes.
cover myself so I don't lose my house, and you changed what I wrote, that makes me very uneasy just hearing you say that.
Again, that's just wrong. I'm just going to come out and say it. That's just wrong. I mean, there's a reason why they're doing it, and it's not for a good purpose, if you've already figured out.
Yeah, I think I
Um,
have. Thank you.
They're not doing this for the good of the group. That's why I said there is no major, there is no minor. It's just whatever happens, what you put in there. And if you're doing this third-party deal, you're doing third-party software deal, you're doing it to manipulate your numbers. It's just that simple. And that's how are we ever going to address the problems that we have in the building if we don't acknowledge that we have? See, that's what we're doing, is we're editing. We're painting a picture that's not accurate. I'd rather if you know, as a parent, grandparent, I'd rather people acknowledge what's going on, then they might fix it. But I know if they don't acknowledge what's going on, I know they're not going to fix it. Nothing to see here. And then, you know, the little things left undone tend to just get bigger and better all the time and worse. But even if they don't become major things, they never stop. We never address. It's the same thing every year. It's kind of like Groundhog Day. We go through the same thing. We had other questions. Go right ahead. Who else had a question?
I did have my hand up, but you answered that question.
Okay. Thank you,
For
Tony.
me. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, I'd have to question if I wanted to work in a place where folks were doing stuff like that, ethical piece of it, because you're right. You could get thrown under the bus pretty easy. That's a poor metaphor, I know, but you want to work for people who are on the up and up. And when push comes to shove, you don't want them to be doing the pushing, and you're the one that gets shoved under the bus. And so, but that's what that's for.
I was going to say,
yeah.
So when I get a discipline referral, because Lord knows I've gotten many of them so far, when the teacher writes it up, I just copy and paste what they wrote into Power School. Because nobody knows it better than the teacher of what happened. So, man, it's just easier for me. I don't try to type it.
And think about what Dr. Sane said last week. If you're the AP and they're turning this stuff in, that's exactly what I do. I just copy and paste it right in there, good, bad, or otherwise. And they can't get you for editing it or changing it or whatever. And if they want to go back and say, well, you know, I've thought that over, and maybe, well, that's on them then, and it's not on you. Don't try to paraphrase. Well, I just do straight copy and paste.
It takes less thinking that way, and I'm all about it.
It does too. Yeah, again, I told you. My position coach told me, don't use your head. You're hurting the team. Don't think. Just stick your head in the tight end's ribs when he comes across the middle. That's all we need for you to do. Don't think.
Dr.
Now, how
Lynn?
many times have you heard me tell you, assistant principal is a technician level job. Don't overthink it. Get good at the technology of it. And people will respect that, and you'll get your shot. But if you're overthinking it and you're trying to be the boss and you're talking, no, it's a technician level job, and people respect that if you're good at it. Question?
I have a question. Well, I have something to ask. So I have a little student who only in the first grade, and we have something called Bronco expectations.
Yeah.
And he has been very vulgar for first grader.
Yeah.
With the other students in the bathroom. So today I was charged with calling his mom because he had touched a child inappropriately.
Right.
Well, last week he had pulled down a student's pants in the bathroom. And the teacher explained to me that this student goes to the bathroom by himself because he will he will watch, I don't know, he's got a lot going on. And there's history there where he was doing strange stuff like this last year as well.
Well, see, this is not sounding good. I mean, the problem that I'm hearing already is that we're aware of all these things and we're not providing adequate supervision.
Well, he's going to the bathroom. What happened was he's the only one. She was sending him to the bathroom by himself.
Sending? Oh no! See that they're in that.
No, she's standing at the door. She's standing in the middle, but like the children are all lined up, and then she's standing at the door so she can see him. But there's nobody else in the bathroom with him. No other students, no other boys goes in the bathroom with him. He's the last one to go to the bathroom.
Okay,
And there are no other boys in the
All right.
bathroom with him.
so if that's what's happening, then there shouldn't be a problem, should there?
Well, he touched the child while they were standing in line, lining up to go outside. This
Okay,
wasn't just, you know what I'm trying to say? Like,
yeah,
but the point I'm getting at is we didn't put anything. So when we called the parent, the principal wanted to follow the Bronco expectations,
yeah,
which is tomorrow he has a consequence.
right.
But we called the parent, but we didn't put anything in Power School. Is what I'm.
Well, again, that's an editing, you get caught. You get caught and then it won't go well for you. You should have put, inappropriate touching in Power School. We're not claiming this is a sexual offense with a sixth grader. We could do inappropriate touching. But now what happens when that parent or the kid who got touched comes over and shows their behind and wants to punch everybody in the nose and there's no record of it? All of a sudden you've told on yourself that you letting stuff go on at school that you're not reporting. That becomes a bigger issue than a 1 6-year-old touching another. Ouch. Now again, I got to worry about you and your ethics. If you're not reporting that, what else are you not reporting? If you're not reporting the little stuff, I know you're not reporting the big stuff. Now, be clear, I'm not claiming this is one of those at the back of the book. This is not sexual assault, sexual offense, rape, or indecent liberty. This is inappropriate touch. But that should be in Power School. See, again, we're doing an edit. We didn't do this, but it doesn't matter. If you're doing a consequence with him, it should be in there. I don't care if all you did was talk to him. If there's a consequence, if you said don't do that again, it's got to go in Power School. It protects you on the backside because people will come and challenge you if their kid is the perceived victim. They're a lot of times a bigger ass than the ones of the kids that you're having to deal with who committed the infraction. Everybody's a victim now. They come over and want to punch everybody in the nose and burn the building down now. I don't get that there's a certain amount of things that I can't. We can do the best we can do, but if you get out in the world, bad things can happen. It's just like all those high-class ladies in my neighborhood in Lake Norman. I said, I don't know why in the world everybody has to drive their child to elementary school now. They used to ride the bus. I said to them nice ladies in my neighborhood, how in the world are your children going to learn about sex if you don't let them ride the school bus? I mean, there's got to be a little bit, there's going to be things that don't always go just exactly like you want them to go. The whole point, as I've told you, is we're trying to keep our jobs in our houses. We're trying to learn the legal ins and outs. I'm not saying that if we know all this stuff that nobody will ever get hurt or nothing bad will happen. And we certainly don't want kids to get hurt, and we don't want bad things to happen. But we don't want bad things to happen to us either. We don't want to sacrifice our house, our career, our jobs over things. So I'm gonna follow the rules. I'm gonna follow the law. You're not gonna catch me thumping the numbers in any way that can, whether it's illegal or how I started this rant tonight, unethical. Because I don't want people giving me the side eye and say, well, I don't know if he did that or not, but maybe we ought to move on from him. And when people get to talking about you, you know how it is, then you can't find work. Well, you can, but not doing this. I mean, we as school administrators, we operate on our credibility, our reputations, our ethics. That is what we operate on. That is who we are. That is our skill set. That you can trust and believe in us. That is our skill set. And when people lose that about you, you can't make it in the business. But I don't want bad things to happen to kids ever. I want to be a champion for kids. But along the way, we want to do everything we can, but we can't be martyrs. We can't give up our careers, our jobs, our houses. We can't lose that over this. And so I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to do the things that I know. But Tyler's exactly right on Jennifer's case. I just copy and paste what the teacher said. I would not be editorialized and edited. Whatever the teacher said is what I'd put down. And that's what I'd classify it as. You know, one of the things that always happens is, you know, in the heat of the battle, you go in and put it in. And one of the reasons why the 24/48 on reporting time is there is you get buyer's remorse later on. You know, you have a big fight on Friday and one of them pokes you in the nose and your nose is bleeding down in your mustache and about tears about half your ear off and you're mad as fire and you put it in as a fight. But on Monday or Tuesday, when you come back to work, well, maybe that was just aggressive behavior. You know, you got the blood up out of the floor and your eye ain't swelled together anymore. And so you've moved on and said, well, you know, that would be bad for our school if I reported that. You know, I had a principal over the middle school who got on TV without permission and said, we haven't had a suspension for a fight all year. And I was like, oh crap, not over there. I know that place. Good God, it's like an abattoir. You slide down the hall on the blood over there. They fight so often. So I went over there to see what, and of course it hit the news media. It was on the new news. And everybody in the community knew it was a lie, but it really wasn't a lie. She just had said, we're not going, they can fight all they want. We're just not going to suspend them anymore. But what she was trying to imply to the community is, oh, the kids don't fight here like they used to. Why, sure they do. She just wasn't suspending them. She wasn't following the code of conduct. So, you know, she sacrificed herself, had to let her go. But you can't do things like that. And she was just manipulating her numbers. Trying to, you know, I guess, answer her critics in the community that there were too many fights in the building. Well, the reason why they said that was because there were. If you don't suspend kids in middle school for fighting, they'll just fight more. And so, you know, those are those kinds of things. So the last piece tonight I want to cover with you as we move through this is to make sure that we hit the due process piece, because that's, you know, everything we do is about it. And that's with the code of conduct. Now, there's another piece here that I did years ago that I don't know that we're doing anymore. So, you know, the state sets all this. Now, back in the day, you say NCY is ESSU. This was what was the precursor to Power School. And yes, it's got some age on it because I can't show you the Power School one because it's proprietary. That your district may make a manual that tells you how to use Power School, and you'll see my name is on this one's here somewhere that I had it made there. And so this is, you know, we had the pictures of the screens, what we wanted you to do. I mean, you know, we went through it and then we trained our folks. This is the way you do this. We want you to be honest. We want you to be ethical. We want you to know how to do this. We want you to make sure that you're complete and accurate in your reporting. I made a manual on how to manual. Now, if there is one, it's not public because it's proprietary information and people would be able to go in and do things that they wouldn't. But this was a training manual for new administrators in Charlotte-Mecklenburg in terms of this is what I want done. I want it done this way. And if you can't understand it, here's the screenshot of it. If you can't remember it, go back and refer to this manual. Now, the purpose of this manual was not for them to edit that things down and not report. It was to make sure that we reported fully. It was exactly the opposite of what Jennifer was talking about. We were using this not as a third-party software, but as a way to make sure I want everything reported. I don't want to hear, I didn't think I had to do that. You follow this manual. Well, this is a lot. Yes, it is. It is a lot of work. Now, let's talk about what consequences we give. Well, the consequences that we give are based on our code of conduct for our district. The General Assembly and the State Board of Education in both states says it's the responsibility of the local education agency, LEA, or the local school board, to adopt a code of conduct in terms of what is not acceptable, yes, but more importantly, what the consequences of that behavior are. And so that's what's important here. You say, well, Dale, this is the same stuff that's in the state manual. Of course it is. The state says these are the infractions, and then and it says, all right, local school district or LEA, now you set the penalty for that. What is the punishment going to be? What is the consequence for these things that we say you can't allow to happen in our buildings because we pay for this thing. State's sending the money. And so CMS adopted a level system, or excuse me, a tier system. And it says, it has all their due process rights right here. Look at here. Here's their rights. Make sure you follow through to all those things, safe harbor, everything that they have. And then it explains the tiers, you know, what are, what the tiers are. So disciplinary level 1, there they are, level 2, and level 3, level 4, level 5 consequences. So there's the tier system, what those are and what your options are. And it tells you what the minimum and maximum is for everything that the state says you're not supposed to do in the building. And that's what a code of conduct does. Code of conduct says, these are the due process rights that this kid, you saw all those rights. These are the due process rights that these kids get. And these are the consequences for the infractions if they do that. That is up to the local. So the state doesn't care what you give them, really. They're just, you know, they want you, again, the state is not organized around outcomes. Punishment's an outcome, a suspension's an outcome. The state is organized around incident. What happened? Not what happened as a result, what result of what happened, but what happened. We had a fight. All right, it's up to you what you're gonna do. What does your code of conduct say on fight? I mean, whatever you just make sure that, and they don't even get into, did you stay within the parameters? We just want to know that there was a fight. What you had to do, your local says has to do with that. But you got to tell us that you had a fight. And you got to tell us what you did. But now we're not telling you what you have to do, but you have to tell us what you did as a result of that, so that we can compile all that for the Office of Civil Rights. Because one of the things that Office of Civil Rights is concerned is that me and Nate get in a fight, you know, and Nate just wears the ground out with me. And then, you know, and they give us a day of suspension each. And then Willie gets in the fight with Tyler. And again, they give Tyler a day of suspension, but they give Willie 10 days. And it both says fight. Anybody see a problem with that when we start doing Office of Civil Rights reporting? Yeah, it was arbitrary and capricious. You know, we've been given 1 day. We've been given 1 day to all the white guys, and then a person of color gets in the fight, we give him 10. That's why you have to put the consequences in. People think, well, the states, you know, why we got to tell them if they don't care? Because we're doing Office of Civil Rights reporting. That's why. And they're looking to make sure that we're equitable, that we're not being arbitrary or capricious when we hand out our consequences. But one of the things that most people would argue, and I would argue as well, is it's pretty easy to track if you're inequitable in the consequences. Where the inequity occurs is who gets charged, and who gets a warning off with a verbal warning, and who gets written up and sent to the office. Therein lies your issue. And so one of the things that you got to work at when you get to be principal, especially if you got assistant principal or more than one assistant principal, is making sure that you're equitable, that you try, that everybody gives similar consequences, that we call things similarly. It can't be that one person puts it in as aggressive behavior and the other puts it in as a fight, because they carry completely different consequence levels. And so, you know, those are the kinds of things that we've got to be, as principals, we have to be very aware of. Last thing tonight, as we're coasting into our time here, please remember that everything that you assign as assistant principal, everything Tyler does, can be appealed to his principal. And the decision, if the principal upholds Tyler's decision, it can be appealed to the assistant superintendent. And if that's upheld, it can be appealed to the superintendent. And if that's upheld, it can be appealed to the school board. They have regular sessions, monthly sessions of appeal where they hear appeals. And if the board appeals the appeal, you can go to civil court. And so my point in that is you got to be clean. Just like Tyler said, that was, thank you to Tyler, so perfect. I just copied what the teacher told me. I mean, and then I look it up in the handbook. Teacher said they were fighting. I look it up in the handbook, and that's what I punish them for. The teacher said they were being rowdy or aggressive. I looked up aggressive behavior. That's what I punish them for. You know, get the kid's side of the story. I get the witness statements. I follow my due process, and then I I categorize it according to what the teacher said it was. I don't sit and editorialize it. The teacher says they're fighting. That's what the evidence says. That's what they're punished for. You know, you got to be very consistent. You've got to make sure that you do that, and you can't. And my last thing tonight is don't be capricious in the fact that this is the 7th time you've seen Billy this week. You punish Billy every time he comes based on what he did that time, not in aggregate. Can't do that. That's the biggest mistake that young administrators make is doggone it, Billy, you in my office more than I am. And you get mad, and you overreact, and you're capricious in your punishment. You gotta be careful with that. Remember, each time that Billy comes, and we'll talk about this, it's a little bit different for exceptional children. But each time Billy comes, you've got to give him his punishment on the merit of what he did that time. We'll talk about establishing a pattern for EC kids when we get to that. So next week, I'm so excited. I'm telling you, I can hardly sleep the week before the first case study presentation. It is my absolute favorite, and I know that y'all are going to do a great job. I'm so excited. Please work together. Make sure that you get this thing done. Have me a good PowerPoint presentation next week, and everybody gets to present. And I want everybody to come and you get to present with your team. We'll have a big time next week, I promise. All right. Anybody have any other questions tonight?
I just have one more
Yes.
because I'm really thinking about this. So if I'm a assistant principal, a teacher writes something up and then I investigate and I'm like, okay, they wrote this up this way, but this isn't really what happened. Do you just do
So
an
I would-
amendment to it? How does that
I would
work?
go back to what Tyler was said. He does a copy and paste. I'm betting Tyler puts his own notes in there as well.
Okay, so okay.
He seems
I've
pretty
just never
smart.
seen the Power School side, so that's why I was
Yeah,
wondering.
you would put in, I'll just do a copy and paste in terms of what the teacher said. And then I would put in, as a result of my investigation, this is what I found. But
Okay.
I would always put what the teacher said, good, bad, even if it's not what I found out happened. I want it documented. This is what the teacher said.
Gotcha.
I don't want it coming back on me.
Makes
That's
sense.
something inappropriate that, from my investigation, this is what I have believe happened. But I want that teacher statement in there so that I'm not the one that gets thrashed with that teacher statement. I don't have to own it. My
Gotcha.
investigation said this, but I've got that. So if they want to sue because or get appeal on what the teacher said, that's on the teacher. That's not on me. I'm not trying to throw the teacher under the bus. But everybody has to stand up and be professional and ethical. That's a great question. If
Thank
I
you.
find something else, I would document what I found. That's a great question. All right. I've enjoyed it as always. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank
And
you.
I can't wait till next week. I'll see you next Monday for case studies. Everybody have a good week and good weekend. Bye-bye. Thank you.
You too, thanks.
Bye.